Well, I think we are moving on to our flagship segment, our asshole of the week.
Dun, dun.
This week, I am impugning an entire organization, which is always fun to do. An organization that I'm considerably annoyed with a lot of the time, as they reside in the Cubs NL Central. St. Louis Cardinals made asses of themselves over this past week when it came to the Willson Contreras catcher slash DH slash outfielder situation, as he was publicly humiliated by his own organization and demoted, losing his catching uh, position that he was essentially hired for as a free agent for the next 5 years for $87.5 million. 30 30 games in, he was summarily dismissed of those duties publicly again. And that's really where this comes to the asshole, how they earn their asshole of the week for me. I love a conspiracy theory. I love corporate espionage. I love the idea of even a baseball franchise sending a mole into a rival organization to destroy them from within. We we've talked about this over the years with examples of uh, Jose Quintana being sent by your White Sox over to the Cubs to destroy the 2017 Cubs, which he did quite well. The Cubs returned that favor in 2021 when they sent Craig Kimbrell to destroy the 2021 White Sox, which he did quite well. Of course, those are conspiracy theories. Those are just fun things we wrote on the blog or talked about on the podcast. Of course, they're not true. Those players are trying their fucking hardest to do all things to better their team, better their own careers. There's no legs behind that, but it's just fun to talk about. But I kind of think the Cardinals thought it was real. I think the Cardinals really believed that the Cubs sent Willson Contreras to their organization to destroy them from within. They
Okay.
they experienced the worst start they had in 50 years since 1973. They could not explain how they were so bad and chose to publicly humiliate their new free agent, Willson Contreras. I can't understand why they would do this in any other for any other reason other than they could not explain how bad they were and they needed someone to take the fall. And it was easy enough just to publicly say that our catcher is not good enough and he needs to go. I Obviously I'm joking, but at the same time, why was any of this made public? Why did the Cardinals feel the need to say we are moving Willson Contreras from his catcher duties? First of all, they said he was going to be an outfielder and a DH. The next day, they said he was just going to be a DH. Then, less than 1 week later, he is now catching once again. That that is my part of everyone's consternation. Like, what are you doing? Why was any of this public? Why would there was even some rumor thrown out there that the starting rotation of the Cardinals went to Ali Marmol, their manager, and requested losing or Willson losing his catching duties because they didn't want to throw to him, which is obviously false because last night he returned to his catching duties, and to which Jack Flaherty threw 7 innings of no-run ball and had 10 strikeouts. They won the game 18-1 against their rival Milwaukee Brewers. So obviously Willson wasn't the problem if you see that, and if he's been given his duties right back within a week. All of this could have been conducted completely privately, and we would have not known a thing if they just hadn't come out publicly and said, we are relieving him of his catching duties. All they had to do is play him at DH for a week, sort it out, figure out what, maybe they said publicly he needs to prepare more. Really what they were saying is he's not Yadier Molina, because nobody is. And they were telling us for 20 years that nobody is Yadier Molina. So the idea that they were blindsided by that Willson Contreras wasn't Yadier Molina is ludicrous. how they chose to handle it is why I'm making them my assholes of the week, because this was so ham-fistedly administered by the Cardinals, who are known to be a classy, first-rate organization that couldn't have handled this more poorly. This is not just a Cubs fan or me, a major league a-hole, as I have called ourselves for 10 years. I've heard similar just perplexity from expressions of perplexion from regular national journalists like Buster Olney and Tim Kirchin on the Baseball Tonight podcast. We're asking each other the same questions, like how could they handle it this way? This makes zero sense what the Cardinals are doing, and they didn't have answers either. So there's more to this. I guess the bright side of things is that Wilson's back catching. You know, the other part of this that is strange, and maybe coincidental, but the Cardinals won 7 out of their last 8 games since all this started. I believe that might be 8 out of 9 now that Willson is back, and they won that game going away last night. So, they put him in a horrible position. If they had lost that game last night, what would fans say? They were on a roll at that point, which is really just coincidence. But he comes back to catch.
Yeah.
He comes back to catch. What if they got blown out 18-1? What would that do to Willson Contreras? I think it's cool for him, at least, that he didn't have to deal with that. But for the organization to put any player in that position is unconscionable. It's unbelievable. I think there's 2 ways to look at it. Either they just literally are that incompetent, or they did it on purpose. Either way, they're fucking assholes.
I mean, it did win them a lot of games. So.
It was a brilliant strategy. Just try to ruin their new free agent catcher. But
the funny thing is, did you read the reason why he's back at catcher? Your line was perfect. That is pure coincidence that they went on the winning streak while he was not catching, because while he wasn't catching, the starting pitcher's ERA over those games was 1 run higher than when he was the catcher. So
just happens to be that Nolan Arenado woke up finally.
They said, well, the pitching staff had a higher ERA without him back there, and we liked his progress over the past week.
Progress, okay.
Yes. So there you go. He's back.
Jesus Christ. What a clown show.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's no reason, even if you're asked, like, well, how come Contreras is DHing tonight? Like, we're keeping him fresh.
Yes.
There's so many answers to not bring it out.
Or maybe you could just say he's got a little bit of a back issue, just cover for him, whatever. Yeah. Catchers are all the time. Maybe no one would even ask if he was gone for that week. If he was a DH that whole week, not catching, and they went on a winning streak, especially if they went on that same winning streak without them saying anything, no one would be asking about it. They would just say, hey, we're on a winning streak. Let's go. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it could have been so easily just swept under the rug. If that's really what they wanted to do, if that really happened, that the starting staff came to management and said, we don't want this guy catching us anymore, that has to be false. I just can't imagine that happening. And he was catching last night all of a sudden. So.
Yeah, catching last night and seemed to be doing okay.
Yeah. So I feel very justified in calling the entire St. Louis Cardinals organization our assholes of the week.
Word Hole Media.